What's going on, guys? Desmond here with SlitherVision. Today's video, I'm going to be discussing some tips and advice to help you understand what you need to know before you start breeding ball pythons, and kind of just give you some experiences that I've went through so far in my journey. Yet I've yet to breed my first ball pythons, but I have been raising them up for the last couple of years, and super excited to actually hopefully produce my first clutch this upcoming year. So I kind of just wanted to give you guys some knowledge and advice that I've learned over the past couple of years, from when I first decided I wanted to start breeding to where I'm at now today. So thank you guys for tuning in. With that being said, let's dive right into this video. What you need to understand before breeding ball pythons. If you're thinking about breeding ball pythons, there are some things you absolutely need to understand before you ever pair your first snake. Breeding ball pythons is exciting, it's creative, it's addicting, but it's also a long-term commitment financially and time-wise. So today I want to break down what you really need to understand before jumping in. First things first, one of the most important things I think is you need a business plan. This first thing, and this is a huge one, you need some sort of type of business plan. It doesn't have to be some crazy corporate document, but you need a plan. And this kind of lets you know on what you plan on pairing, what's the potential clutch outcome, and what you plan to hold back in your holdback rack, and what you plan to sell, and why are you making that pairing. So you kind of got to ask yourself that before you even do any sort of pairing. A business plan gives you some direction. It keeps you from impulse buying every cool snake you see. When you know your goal, your purchases become more strategic. Strategy is definitely key. If you're working towards recessives like clown, pied, DG, exanthic, or your plan needs to be reflected towards that. If you're building powerful, incomplete, dominant combos, same thing. You need to know what your plan is and why you're doing that, what the outcome is, and kind of what your overall goal is down long term. Without a plan, you're just pairing your snakes. With a plan, you're building a project. So definitely have some sort of plan with what direction you want to go before you start pairing snakes. This definitely is something that I've kind of learned from when I first got my snakes, and here I am 3 years later, ready to start breeding. I have a couple males that I'm like, why did I get those males? Why didn't I just get a visual? And it came down to deals, and I kind of got some deals with a bulk purchase that I made. So it kind of just led to that. Now I got two hets going to each other, and do I really want to do that? It's going to further me in the long run. So I ended up getting a couple visual males. So now I have a couple extra males. So you really don't want to do that. Luckily for me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to raise up those snakes as I would, going to take care of them. I don't want to get rid of them because they've kind of helped me get to where I am today. So if you're willing to do that, great. If you don't want to go through that process, this is kind of just some advice from me. Okay, secondly, understand the genetics you want to work with. You need to understand the difference between recessive genes, incomplete dominant, and codom genes, visuals, and hets. Recessive are long-term investments. They take planning and patience. Incomplete dominance can give you visual results faster. So you need to ask yourself, do you want to breed right away, or are you okay raising animals up for 2 to 3 years, getting them to maturity, getting them up to size? There's no right or wrong answer, but it's your timeline, and you need to know what your timeline is. If you buy a bunch of babies, you may not see results for years. If you buy proven breeders, you'll move faster, but your investment is usually higher. Think long-term is my advice. This is not a flip game. This is not a quick return investment. This is a multi-year vision. So you really need to know what your timeline is, kind of figure that out. Everything is different for every other person, so it's kind of what you want. Thirdly, I'd like to discuss quality over quantity. This one is really important. More snakes does not mean more success. In most cases, less is better. Fewer higher quality animals with strong genetics and direction will outperform racks full of random projects. Like I said, you need to know what projects you want and kind of understand right away what you want to get into. It's better to have 5 to 10 strong animals than 30 with no direction. Every snake you own requires food, space, cleaning, time, and attention. And if you can't give each animal proper care, your project suffers. Quality over quantity always wins long term. And fourthly, husbandry comes first. Before you ever breed a snake, you need to master husbandry. And this is kind of why I got all my snakes as hatchlings. It kind of taught me what I need to know, how I respond to things, what are some things that snakes do, going off food, shed cycles, bedding, humidity, temperature gradients, and proper enclosure setups for me. So these are all things that definitely I had no clue about just from videos or YouTube videos, but I got to really understand that from a firsthand aspect. So you need to understand those things, the feeding schedules, the proper enclosure setups, something that works for you, temperature gradients. You got to understand the highs and the lows, the humidity, low humidity to high humidity, bedding, what source of bedding are you going to use, and shedding cycles, health monitoring. If you can't consistently keep your snakes healthy, eating, and thriving, you're not ready to breed. Breeding multiplies your responsibility. So you need to understand that once you start breeding, you're going to have snakes, tons of snakes. You need to know, instead of caring for 5 to 10 snakes, you might suddenly have a gravid female, a clutch of eggs, 6 to 10 hatchlings, babies that need feeding assistance. Not everything's going to run smoothly, so you got to make sure that you're able to handle that, and if you're ready for that. You have to be ready for that. Time is a real factor. Do you actually have time to clean, feed, weigh, photograph, market, and interact with these animals properly? You have to be honest with yourself and kind of see if this is something for you. It's not for everybody, but if you're really into it, you're passionate, you can definitely do it. Another thing I really suggest is that you set a budget for your first year. Another huge thing. You need to set a budget. Decide what you're comfortable investing for your first year. Find a number that doesn't stress you financially, but still allows you to move your projects forward. This is a long-term investing. You might not see profit for your first year. You might not see it your second. So you got to ask yourself, are you okay feeding animals for months if they don't sell right away? Can you afford rodents, frozen rodents consistently? Or are you able to breed your own rodents? Do you have the space if animals don't move? A smart breeder plans for slow sales. Because it happens, Not everything's going to sell right away. It might not sell at all. You never know. You got to learn. And that comes to having a marketing plan. This might be one of the most overlooked parts of breeding. And you need to understand, how are you going to sell your animals? Are you going to do it on social media, YouTube, Instagram, Morph Market, reptile shows? Where are your buyers coming from? And that's something that really you need to stress, and you kind of got to figure that out. And here's something important. Start building your brand before you start breeding. I'm not breeding yet, but I'm already, building an audience, whether it be here on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, just trying to build an audience. You got to show your face, share your journey, engage with the community. If you're not into YouTube videos, no big deal. Engage with the community. Go check out other people's stuff. Kind of get your name in the game. Join some live streams, comment on some posts, support other breeders. Because at the end of the day, this is a community, and it's good to support other breeders. Because if you're in this for yourself, you're really not going to see much. You got to be here for the passion, the community. We're all one. It is extremely hard to just post a snake for sale with no audience and expect it to move. It can be done, but it takes patience and it takes effort. The breeders that consistently sell animals have something in common. They built trust and presence first. Marketing yourself is just as important as producing quality animals. So another good key would be ready for what doesn't sell. Like I touched on earlier, this is something that people don't talk about a lot, but not every snake is going to sell immediately. Some might sit for months, years, and are you willing to feed them, house them, care for them long term? Do you have enough rack space? Do you have enough tanks for these guys, depending on your husbandry? Breeding means being responsible for every life you produce. You can't rush sales. You can't cut corners. You have to be prepared for growth, both expected and unexpected. Things happen, so you got to be prepared for that. And kind of my final thoughts, breeding ball pythons is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I've seen some amazing things been hatched, produced. I've never bred them personally yet, but from what I've seen, it is an amazing experience. Keeping these animals and raising them up from hatchlings to adulthood, it's been an awesome, great experience, and I'm really enjoying it. I love it. And creating combos you've envisioned for years is one of the best feelings, it looks like, and I cannot wait to achieve those. But it takes planning, patience, investment, time, and discipline. If you treat it like a long-term vision, not a short-term flip, you'll build something sustainable. Build smart, invest intentionally, market yourself, master husbandry, choose quality, and be patient. And if you do that, you're already ahead of most people starting out. Like I said, when I first started out and got into this, it started off as a hobby. I knew I kind of wanted to get into that next level, start breeding, and just create some really unique, dope animals that I like. With genes that I liked, I chose clown at first. I got a couple het clown females, and I only got one visual female. Then I, for some reason, didn't get any visual males. I got some hets, and I'm like, okay, I can just breed them, and then I can get a clown, right? Well, the odds are not very good to get a clown visual, and if I do, it's like 1 or 2 out of a clutch, depending on the size. And now I'm realizing, well, now I got all these hets to hets. I got a couple visuals. Well, if I breed that to that, I'll get visuals when I breed the visual to visual, but when I'm breeding a het to a visual, the chances are not as good, and I'm going to have all these extra snakes that have no genes. They're just hets. Do they sell well? Do they, you got to figure out, do I have to bring them to a reptile show? What am I breeding for? You got to kind of figure that out. Anyways, that wraps up to today's video. I really appreciate you all if you have stuck around watching this video. I hope that you've learned something throughout this video. I hope that my experiences and what I'm sharing to today is helpful in some sort of way, whether it be good or bad, kind of helps you steer in some sort of direction. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys, like I said, and I'll see you guys in the next one.